Although Trump's war against Iran is a strategic and humanitarian disaster resulting in war crimes against school children and other civilians, it's not stopping Trump from already looking to his next war, this one involving Cuba. The fact is that war has already started. Cuba has been under a severe blockade for 3 months. The United States has allowed no oil in. Congressional Democrat delegation recently visited Cuba to see for themselves the humanitarian crisis there. My name is Dina Doll with the MeidasTouch Network. Let's get into this. So Congresswoman Geopolitical, the former chair of the Progressive Caucus, plus Congressman Jackson, also a Democrat, visited there. And she was horrified by, in particular, the crisis, the oil that the blockade is causing in terms of electricity, and specifically how this is affecting the babies. The babies that are born early or born in a way where they have to be alive with electricity in those neonatal wards, and the cancer patients who need electricity for their surgeries and their care. Take a listen to what she has to say.
What is life like in Cuba right now, Representative?
It's really grim. It's cruel. I was in Cuba 2 years ago, so I actually got to see even the difference between today and 2 years ago. This fuel blockade comes, by the way, on the back of the longest standing embargo in world history against any country. That's United States foreign policy for the last 60 years. But right now on the ground, it's dark, literally, for the majority of the day. Households don't have electricity, sometimes for 20 hours at a time, which means that if you've only got 4 hours of electricity, usually in the night, people are awake during the night trying to do whatever they can with whatever electricity they can get. Hospitals are really struggling. The public health system is really struggling. I was in a maternity hospital. It was probably the most heartbreaking.
The humanitarian crisis caused by our sanctions on Cuba, that the people there who have little or no control over the dictatorship that they are undergoing cancer treatments, babies born too early, at the risk of dying more likely because of our economic sanctions. And what is Trump saying about this? Well, Trump seems to be gleeful about this, saying that looks like he's going to be taking over Cuba because of basically how bad the conditions are that we have caused, how bad the conditions are for the people that we have caused. This humanitarian crisis, this manufactured humanitarian crisis we have created because Trump wants the honor of taking over Cuba. Take a listen.
When you say Cuba is next.
Cuba.
Is Cuba, whatever you do with the military there, it seems like something. Will that look more like Iran or Venezuela?
Can't tell you that. I can tell you that they're talking to us. It's a failed nation. They have no money, they have no oil, they have no nothing. They have nice land. They have nice landscape, It's a beautiful island.
Now, it does not seem to be a coincidence that we seem to be in this new war with Cuba at the same time as we are in this new war with Iran. Because Trump's obsession with Obama seems to be to have rolled back the progress Obama made during his term with both Iran and Cuba. Now, as we know with Iran, we entered into a nuclear deal in order to stop them from developing nuclear weapons. And Trump came in, and because he didn't like the fact that Trump had this deal in place and seemed to kind of want to undo everything Obama did, he undid that. And now we are in this situation with Iran where maybe the best case scenario for this war is basically to get a version of that with probably a lot less concessions from Iran. And then the same with Cuba. So when Obama was in office, he implemented something that was called the Cuban thaw. And for the first time, we increased our relations with them, allowed more economic opportunity, allowed more travel. And then Trump came into office and reversed that. And he put them on the state terrorism list, increased their sanctions, reduced their travel. And so again, the progress that Obama made, Trump undid. And now here we are, because as a result of that, Cuba became closer to Russia. So much so that the Russian exports to Cuba more than doubled in 2017 to 414 million and rose to 440 million. They continue to rise. This is after Trump stopped the Cuban thaw. Because as we all know, and just as a reminder, the whole reason we are in this standoff with Cuba is because of Russia. We didn't want Russia to have a foothold in a country so close to ours. It's the whole premise behind the Cuban Missile Crisis. We were afraid that there were going to be missiles, in coordination with Russia from Cuba to the United States under Kennedy. And so we basically have had this Cold War against Cuba, but really because of Russia. So what happened was Obama tried to make some progress, help them become allies of ours, or at least cooperative partners of ours, rather than Russia. Trump undid that. Russia benefited, so much so that their exports jumped under his first term. And now we're in the situation where he's basically trying, similar to Iran, instead of diplomatic efforts, this war, this other version of war, instead of dropping bombs, basically hurting the people without oil and electricity and food. And as a result, who is benefiting? Well, Russia. Trump just allowed hundreds of thousands of oil barrels to go into Cuba because Russia wasn't going to let and watch their ally starve to death and have no electricity. So the country that Trump allows in is Russia, the exact partner that we don't want Cuba to increase their ties with. Similar to Iran, he is in fact making the situation worse. My favorite thing to do after long days is sit on a couch and pull out a blanket. I am a blanket person, and Lola blankets are by far my favorite blankets. In fact, they're the favorite of my entire family, so I've had to get more than one. And perhaps the best thing about it is that they still look and feel great despite the fact that I have to wash it many times with the pets and the kids. I used to go through blankets fairly quickly because they just never looked or felt very good after multiple washes. The thing that is great about Lola blankets is that it is double hemmed for durability, so it doesn't pill or shed even after so many washes. And it's crafted with ultra soft luxury faux fur and a signature 4-way stretch that sets it apart. It has 20,000 5-star reviews, and once you feel it, you'll know why. It is called the world's #1 blanket. This thing is next level. And perhaps another great thing that I love about it is the fact that they donate a portion of their proceeds to breast cancer research. And they even have a Blanket for Brave program where they give blankets to people going through treatment. I have the large. It is perfect for cozying up solo or someone else, but they even have an extra large, which is massive. Plus they have weighted blankets for calming vibes and matching pillows. And right now, for a limited time, our listeners can get 40% off select Lola Blankets products with code MISTRIAL at checkout. Just head to lolablankets.com and use code MISTRIAL to get 40% off your order. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and let them know we sent you. Wrap yourself in luxury with Lola Blankets. Take a listen to what Congresswoman Geopolitical says, how she calls this a war. We may not be dropping bombs, but this is an economic war. Take a listen.
Part of my trip because I went to the NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit, and you might remember that my daughter was born at 26 and a half weeks. She was 1 pound, 14 ounces. She dropped down to 675 grams. I know what it takes to keep those babies alive, and it is a lot of machines that operate on electricity. And Alejandro was a little baby that was 1,000 grams that I met in the NICU that was just lying there completely wrinkled and barely able to stay alive with no knowledge that that incubator was going to continue to work. We saw a room of incubators that had blown out because of the switch from regular electricity to the generator. So there were only 4 incubators working. We heard stories of people doing manual resuscitation because the ventilators weren't working. We heard stories of a cancer patient that was getting surgery on his throat, and all of the electricity went out, so the doctors were holding phones up for light. So it is a tremendous burden. And for food, people can't get the food they need. I mean, Cuba is only producing 10% of its food needs on that island. So everything else has to come in from somewhere else. And people can't get food. They can't get protein. They can't get nutritious foods. And you are starting to see the effects of that on the health and well-being of the population. So I called it an economic bombing of the infrastructure. If you were to bomb the infrastructure of Iran, for example, we have talked about that as being an illegal action. It's against international law. It is also illegal to economically bomb the infrastructure and to prevent a drop of fuel from getting to the island for 3 months.
In the midst of this economic blockade, it appears that Trump is now planning on starting his military campaign in Cuba, according to reports telling the Pentagon to go in, because the president has said he was not going to resign. So without even finishing his first disastrous war in Iran, he seems to be accelerating and intensifying his war against Cuba. It is no wonder that Mark Carney of Canada just announced that the 70 cents of every dollar they used to use to buy military equipment from America is no longer. That they instead are going to be about independence for their military. Is it a wonder when you have Trump and Rubio and Hegseth on the world stage committing war crimes in Iran and seemingly in Cuba with no end in sight and frankly no respect for the dignity of the people there? Even if you don't like the governments in Cuba and Iran, which both seem to be authoritarian and yes, very bad for their people. But in trying to free them, although honestly, I don't even know if that is a reason we could even believe anymore. At the end of the day, we have zero respect and dignity for the people there. And on top of it, we're not even trying to comply with domestic law in order to get congressional approval, despite the fact that the Constitution requires it. And never mind international law. Thankfully, we have Democrats going there themselves, speaking out and talking about the Cuban people, because frankly, there's a lot of bad stuff coming out of this regime. If you have not yet subscribed to the MeidasTouch network, be sure to do that. Check out the Mistrial podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And please look at our sponsors in the link below. So grateful for the Mistrial sponsors. Not only are they great companies, but they don't censor what I have to say, which is so important in this moment.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.